Hello, everybody. I am Nicole Glenn, co host of the LLC podcast, and it's an honor to introduce listeners to inspiring women who are making a real difference in logistics and supply chain. With the LLC podcast, you'll hear inspirational stories, both personal and professional challenges our guest overcame, how their backgrounds help shape who they are today, and how they empower others, give back to their communities, and often the world. Today, joining myself and Kristy Knichel is Cassandra Gaines, as she is the CEO and founder of Carrier Shore, as well as a podcast streaming guru mecca everything. I don't even know how to explain it, like how you've kind of taken over the world, Cassandra, with your network. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm with like some badass women right now. I mean, you're like the women's of trucking conference. I see the background. It looks actually it's a perfect background, Nicole.
I know it's some other company above me. I don't know who that is. So I just like snuck in a spot.
It looks
Yeah.
perfect. And then Kristy just got done with the EY conference. That was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I'm like, this is a power team right now on this podcast. I'm happy to be here.
Badass women.
Yep,
Yeah.
badass women.
Supporting other badass women. That's what it's about,
very
right?
True.
Yes. So again, like I said, we are just elated to have you here. I mean, we want to dive right in with you and just start asking you some questions. So we had just, before we even started recording, just talking about kind of your journey, right? You've been in your spot for a long time trying to, develop your personal brand, and you're now on FreightWaves hosting your own show that's very successful. You're the CEO and founder of a successful company. You've stepped into the tech space, which for some is daunting in itself. So I just want to rewind time and let's go back to how did all of this start with you?
Okay, so this is an interesting story. But throughout my career, for those of you who don't know me, I was a transportation lawyer. I'm still a transportation lawyer, but I started out as a mere lawyer at a law firm and working very hard. And my favorite partner was a transportation lawyer. And I just hung on to him and got all his assignments. I didn't care. I didn't want to work with the rest of the assholes or the people who weren't really that great at lawyering. And I learned as much as I could from him. And as I progressed in my career, I went in-house at a lot of different companies, Echo, Global Trans, Schneider, and a couple others, and then I started my own company. But as my career grew and I became more comfortable and became to realize, wow, I'm really good at what I do. I'm really good at what I do. And started to realize that I can have a voice and it can be mine and mine only, and I can be whoever I want. That's when I really started to blossom, because I was kicked around a lot in my career. Like I've struggled a lot in my career for being who I am. And it's nice to be in a position where I can be successful and be who I am as well. But to answer your question, when I started my own firm, which was terrifying, I started my own law firm and consulting firm for transportation companies only. A lot of people would message me and ask me questions, but they couldn't afford to hire me. So it'd be like small logistics companies, small trucking companies, or the big companies would have like legal staff that didn't have trucking experience, and the salespeople were not allowed to ask outside counsel questions. So they would come to me on the down low. So the same questions over and over again. So what I started doing, I couldn't help them because it would be a waste of time for me. I wouldn't get paid. So I started making YouTube videos. And if you go to my YouTube channel, which is, I can't remember, but if you search MadGaines, MadGaines, you'll see some and you go to the old videos, you'll see some really old videos where people used to ask me common questions, and I just throw it on YouTube. I do a video on my lunch break, and I'd be like, here's your answer right here. Here's your guidance. And I could duplicate that and just keep sending it out. And I wouldn't feel like such a jerk. And then that began to snowball, and people started listening and watching, and I would go back to visit and drop another YouTube video and I'd be like, oh my God, there's a couple hundred people who watch this. And it started to snowball, and I started posting on LinkedIn. So it genuinely came from a place of, one, business. I couldn't help these people because they couldn't pay for me. And two, genuinely trying to help people that need help and they won't be able to get my kind of expertise. And it's grown into this thing. So then COVID hit, and I decided, all right, to help everybody with all these changing regulations and all the floods of emails I'm getting from people who can't pay me, I was going to learn how to go live. And I would go live like 2 or 3 times a week and do an Ask Me Anything session, an AMA session for 1 hour. And I was terrified. And I just went on LinkedIn, figured it all out, hit the live button, and I let people call in. And this is like old, this is also on YouTube, I think, old school. And people would call in and they would be like very worried about whatever. And I was answering legal questions and it went really, really well. I remember at one point, like there were like 600 people watching. And I was like, what the hell? Like, there's no way these people have this many like legal problems. I don't know what it was. If you're COVID and they were bored, who knows? But it started to grow and grow. And then it became a thing where like, hey, people will call in for questions that were not legal. And it moved into this, it's not a legal thing. And it became like this whole podcast thing. And I'm not a podcaster. I don't like, what? That's so weird for me. But it turned into this whole thing. And that's what the blossom. And you guys, for those of you guys that don't know, it's called MadGaines Live. And I really started it. And FreightWaves helped me as well in 2020 and it's grown since then. And now you can find it every Friday on FreightWaves. We curse, we talk about whatever, we interview executives, we talk about what's going on in the industry. But the part is, the part that people sometimes like and sometimes don't like is that it can be edgy and we curse and we kind of call people out sometimes. And I think that's the journey of it.
See, and that's what I love, I think, about what you do, because you just bring a different edge to it that hasn't been there. And I do think it's great that you call people out, because then it actually has a conversation that gets added to the conversation, I guess, that I feel like people don't talk about. And everyone wants the answers to, but no one's, wants to talk about it. So you kind of pull that out of people. I wanted to ask you real quick, too. You said you had found your voice. What made you find your voice?
I think that's a great question. I think honestly, when I learned that I have a skill that no one can take away, I'm excellent at being a transportation lawyer and I will survive no matter what. So once I realized that and I had like independence from that, that gave me the courage to be like, fuck it. I'm just going to say what I think needs to be said and be who I need to be, because I'll survive no matter what. And if people don't want to hear it, they don't have to listen to me. They don't have to hire me. They don't have to be anywhere near me. And the people who do, they're the ones that kind of stay by my side the whole time.
Like your tribe that you've built.
Yeah, like my tribe. I rely on them heavily.
As you should. Tribes are really what make the world go round. I mean, I'm seeing that even at Women in Conference. I just see these lonely women at a table and start talking to them and start asking them questions about their tribe. And, some of them don't have one, and they're independent. And so what's cool about communities is, men, women, doesn't matter, building that tribe. And then you get great insight and viewpoints that you wouldn't have on your own. And it just, I don't know, it takes you to a new level. So with that, though, I do want to ask you in regards to like fear of all of this, because I don't know about you, Kristy, or you, Cassandra, but like I've walked into situations and fear has stopped me in my career, and it's a constant. So as we keep growing in who we are and our companies get bigger, or we have different things that happen in the industry, it's a recurring thing that we have to keep conquering, right? So I wanted to ask, for some of our listeners, like, how can women, from your experience, earlier in their careers, like as they're entering into new spots, overcome fear related to work that they do? So what type of advice do you have on what you've kind of lived by?
Fear is always with me. It's always in my mind. You've hit on the number one thing I think I struggle with every single day is fear. And I have my entire career. I feel like women struggle with it a lot more than men. Men have this confidence I'm so jealous of sometimes. They just don't, they just go and they're like, fuck it if I fail, fuck it if blah, blah, blah. And they just go and I'm jealous of it. So this is what I do. I don't know if this is good advice or not, but I often have to sit down and when I make decisions, I have to ask myself if it's coming, if there are any fears in my mind. And then I have to write down the fear. And then I have to follow the path of the fear. So most of the time it's fear of failure, um, and fear of how I will look to other people. Those are usually the two that come up to me for me, and it will drive my decisions. Like I'll pull back and not do something because I'm afraid of failing, or I'm afraid of being wrong, or look how I looked in front of everyone. And then after I write it out, I know it sounds really dorky, but I legit have a journal and I'll be like, I have a fear of failure. Like every day I do struggle with, is Carrier sure going to fail? That's a startup that people can't, like, I like, that's like, it's a freaking startup. I'm a lawyer. What the fuck do I know about tech? So every day I'm like, will this fail? And then I have to go back and remind myself of facts. So I write down all the facts. And my brain is obviously creating this illusion that I'm going to fail. So I write down all the facts. We have this many users. We have growing this much. We have this much revenue. I'm an expert in this. I do this. So I write that stuff down, and I realize that, as at least as a woman, or maybe I'm just like a bit crazy, but my brain, to protect me, will concoct fears that are unfounded in my mind, and it will drive my decisions in my life. Sorry if I sound crazy, but that's the truth. I'm sure you guys are so successful and been successful longer than me, so maybe we don't struggle with it. But I would love to hear how you guys battle the
I mean, I'll
fears.
I'll tackle this one first. I mean, I will say, yeah, I mean, that's like an everyday thing. Fear of failing, fear of what are people thinking of you, fear of how are you being perceived. I did like
Mhm.
a keynote speech back in September, like in front of, a bunch of, railroads and, again, male dominated. So again, it's like, are they going to really care what I have to say? Like, is it, and you're just in your head, and it is, it's like a constant issue. And I think the thing that's helped me is just trying to, not writing it down, but practicing and just telling myself that I'm here for a reason. I got asked to speak for a reason because people do want to hear me. And at the end of the day, I just have to speak and do what I need to do and just get through it. So it's really nice to hear that someone like you, that I feel we also look up to and think like you're fabulous, that like we
Thank
all
you.
struggle with the same things.
Every day.
How about you, Nicole?
There's a lot going on, so I'm really sorry if it's so noisy. Mine, yeah, I've had fear always. I think fear is a good thing for me because it also makes me not be complacent, right? So I try to drive off some of the things that scare me to death to go, well, you don't want that. So you got to do this and do that so you can keep going, keep rising. But I mean, for me, I think mine that I'm always struggling with is fear of risk, right? So I try to approach a situation and go, is this outlandish? Will this outcome be good? How can I make sure that this outcome is good? So it's always me trying to like not just stick my toe in the water anymore, but to like put my whole damn foot in there and go, okay, it's not so cold. Like I can do this. And so I think it's just gonna forever be a thing that I just accept, right? It's like I'm always gonna have some sort of fear driving me, and I almost have to be comfortable with that discomfort. Sounds weird, but yeah.
I actually
Now,
think that's perfect. And one thing I want to just say I took home from the EY conference is the fact that they talk about most entrepreneurs, they just have to figure it out, right? I love to take risks. We take risks that sometimes you lose money. You made a bad choice, but it's all about how you recover and pivot and change to make sure that, okay, now this doesn't work. Now let's see what direction we go in now. And I feel like as entrepreneurs, that's also a mindset you have to take with the fear, like knowing that you're not going to be successful if you don't take those risks. And again, when they don't come through, you got to just change.
that's powerful. You got to pivot.
Yep. So
Makes sense.
perfectionism, like, is that something that you struggle with? Like, I want to hear about perfection. What do you think?
Okay,
Yeah.
this is the key to a tech startup, and I've learned this, and I've gotten very good at this. But I almost lost my mind at the beginning. Yes, perfectionism I do struggle with, um, but what I have to do, and being a founder of a tech company and working with the front end developers, the back end developers, planning out everything in every detail, what you want things to look like, you will realize quickly that if you are a perfectionist, you will never succeed. So you do the 80-20 rule, sometimes the 60-40 rule. And you're like, you know what? I tell myself this all the time. The product will be better out there at 80% than 100. Like if we never get there at 100%, because you'll never get there. You hear people talk about this all the time in the tech world. Oh, I've been building this for 2 years, and I've been working on my TMS for 4 years, and it's never going to get done. It's never getting done because you're being a perfectionist. So I've learned this in the tech world. That's been a huge value to me, is that I've got to tap down and really like not be a perfectionist. But I will tell you, the one that I still struggle with is control. Like not letting go of control. That one is the one I think like that I struggle with the most, more than perfectionism.
Well, you're not alone, because I think all of us deal with, and Nicole and I have multiple conversations outside of working hours about moving on into different areas and what we need to relinquish control of to get there. So yeah, that's definitely a struggle. And so going into the next question, I wanted to learn more about, like, so with you starting this tech company, coming from the lawyer side, did you have any mentors in your life? And do you have a mentor now that you're working with that's like, hey, this is something you should do, or you had the thought and now you're reaching out?
It's been really hard to find a mentor. I will tell you that. Like I have been struggling trying to find one. I will tell you that the CEO of Echo, Doug Wagner, the CEO of Project 44, Jet McCandles. So both of them have been mentors to me. So when I went to both of them, and I want to go back to what Nicole said about baby steps, because that's really important. If you have fear of anything, or if you're not getting somewhere, baby steps is the essence to life. So what I did was I hired developers to create the prototype of my idea. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no freaking clue. But I was like, you know what? If it's a piss waste of money, it's my dream. So why can't I piss away money on a dream? So I did. I didn't piss away, by the way. But but I hired these developers to create the prototype. And then I brought the prototype to some people that I thought were influencers in the industry, and they would give me their honest feedback. They know tech, they know the investment world. And Doug Wagner and Jet from Project 44 were the two biggest voices that were like, you're onto something and you need to keep going. And here's how you keep going. So I have clung on to both of them a lot, but it was incredibly hard to find somebody who would believe in a woman and believe in a lawyer who had no idea about tech, has no background on tech, no background on building a business like this. I think it'd be different if maybe like Nicole, you or Kristy, because you guys have experience running a business and dynamic in our industry, it'd be maybe a little bit easier for someone to swallow that we're going to believe in her and invest in her. But I found them. So I have 4 investors that came forward. David Bell from Lean Staffing, and Kevin Nolan from Nolan Transportation and all that. So those are my 4 that have believed in me, and they've been coaching me and coming along and had my back throughout this whole journey. And thank God they did, because the company is growing very fast. I'm very excited.
Kevin Nolan's where it's at.
Yes.
So he's listening.
Yes, he's amazing.
He's so awesome. Yeah,
he's amazing.
I don't personally know him yet, but I know who he is. So he's definitely someone I need to.
So Kristy, when you mentor me on a lot of things, but I always want to bounce some of the things we talk of to Kevin. Like I wanted to buy a building once, and I called Kevin, and he's like, "Why the fuck would you buy a building?" Like he went into this whole thing. So he gives me a very different insight than what you do and some of my other mentors. And he's honest and raw, like yourself, right? And I'm sure that's why you love him too, Cassandra, because he speaks his mind, but never, it's always like in your best interest, you know?
Yep.
And I always just say he's just amazing. So
he's amazing. He really is. Who do you guys have for mentors in your life?
Kristy's one of mine.
Yeah.
Kevin's one of mine. Go ahead, Kristy. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I would say it's kind of crazy. Like, I really hadn't had mentors my whole career. I had like one consulting guy I had worked with, I would say maybe 12 years ago, and it was really just to learn about leadership and that type of thing, not someone in the industry. And then obviously there's been, you know, now that I work with Nicole, I mean, like, same thing, she reached out to me, but in the same aspect, I bounce things off of her. I bounce things off of some other people in the industry as well, some of our competitors, you know, that are in the industry as well. So it's kind of cool that just probably in the last 5 years in particular, really reaching out and having those conversations, because I've had a lot of women reach out to me to help mentor them. But in the same token, some of those companies are 3 times my size. And then I'm like, well, how did you grow your company to that size? Because they're asking me a totally different question. So that's kind of been more of a new thing. But Lindsay Graves of Sunset Transportation has been someone that's helped me with some stuff. And again, it's just really trying to network with more people now and have those conversations. Like the EY event, that's just like all CEOs and entrepreneurs, and like everyone is like so willing to help, and it's just really reaching out.
Yeah, and I have a coach. I have a executive coach that's helped me a ton too. Liz Wayne, she's part of LLC with us. I've talked to her, and some of these people too. I think there's a weird concept around mentoring. Like Kristy keeps saying, like bounce stuff off of. I do that with so many people. Charlie Dehoney, like I'm always bouncing stuff off of. It's never this like formalized, like, hey, will you be my mentor?
Yeah, it's never that.
Yeah, it's just like tapping your network, and
Yep.
that's one of the things I want to ask you and Kristy. I mean, I want to hear your viewpoint, but like, what has your network become to you, Cassandra? And like, what would you tell people and women that are getting into logistics on what they should do with their networks in your mind?
My network means everything to me and has been the foundation of my success at every single place I've ever been. I cannot tell people enough. Anybody, please listening, if you need to build a network, it will save you throughout your entire career, but it will also launch you from so many different places. So many women, especially, get caught up in work and daily and kids and everything and da da da, and it's scary to put yourself out there. But then you see it. There's not a lot of women at conferences. We do have a lot of women in our industry, but they don't see the value in networking. And they should. They really should, because having the ability throughout my career to pick up the phone, because I'm in a dead end job, or I'm in a job where I'm like, this is messed up. I need to get the heck out, because this has happened to me in my career. Being able to pick up the phone, bounce ideas, or get a job, or be able to pick up the phone and be like, hey, something's going on over here. I need help over here with this. It has launched my career. So what I would say to anybody listening is, even if you take small steps, just by the way, just by listening to this podcast, you have already taken like one major step. But going to conferences, even if you're going to be that person sitting all by yourself at the table, fuck it, do it. And smile at people and make eye contact, because they'll walk up to you, because that's essential. But my network is everything to me. I wouldn't be here. I really wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
Well, and I love what you say too, because I feel like you are right. A lot of people, men and women, don't see the value in that. I think there's also like a time and place too, where you have to pick how many different ones you go to, because they can be expensive. But there's also a lot of good networks around your home area, Chamber of Commerce, and getting involved in those type of events as well. But for me, I would say it's been extremely eye-opening over the last 5 years in particular, because building the network, and maybe even 10 years, but I can go to anybody and ask a question and they're willing to help. And I feel like I didn't have that support before, maybe because I just didn't feel like I could ask. And at the end of the day, a lot of people do want to help, no matter what it is. So I think it's extremely important to build that network. And then I'm also hooking up people with other people within my network just from having those conversations. And then it comes back around to you. So it's extremely important. And, like what you're doing with your business, obviously is extremely important to build that business. And same with Nicole and I, and building our business, whether it's banking, whether it's investors, whether it's employees. We have people that follow me that like want to work for me because they see see what you're doing and putting yourself out there. And then there are women that finally reach out, and you could tell they were hesitant about it. And it's like, you can do this too. And they feel inspired by, like, because we're doing what we're doing. And I feel like there needs to be more women like us that are putting ourselves out there, so that other women don't feel like they can't ask, they can't build that network, because it truly is that important.
Yep, it is.
It's been crazy, guys. Like, I've been at Women in Trucking now. This is my 3rd day. And people keep coming up to me and they're like, Nicole. And I'm like, I don't know you.
I don't know you.
But I want to know you, you know? So there's been a lot of people that have said that they've listened to me or they've listened to the podcast and they are inspired by things and they have questions. I'm like, well, now we're at the human connection. So you're right, to me, Cassandra, like getting out, meeting people face to face, because it is easier or sometimes even harder when you're behind a screen. It can be either way. You can have audacity behind a screen, but then you also have these, you know, thoughts where someone's not going to answer your message or there's no connection yet. So to get into these types of situations, again, like I said, I didn't know some of these women, but I'm sitting at tables and I'm listening to these stories of some of these women. And I'm like, I'm so glad I know you now. Like, and I want to help you. And you feel that energy of where people are and where they want to go. And it's just, it's like contagious, right?
Yeah.
And so I agree, getting your butt out to conference. Sometimes some of these conferences now are like $5,000. So like small startups, you know, it may be hard. So there are different groups that you can look into, even communities on LinkedIn. I mean, I've seen that and try to meet people for coffee and find out what's up, you know, how can I help you? What's up? What are you doing? And establish that, you know, connection is the best way.
And I want to add something too. So, like, for example, someone I'm mentoring here in Pittsburgh, she decided to change a job, Abby, and she's working for a company that's actually allowing her now to get out and visit, you know, these conferences. And I already hooked her up with Nicole. Like, you got to meet this person and this person. Like, and it's, I can't even tell you how good it feels, because they feel now like, wow, like I get to meet people that like actually want to help me, and or like they view you as like a celebrity, so to speak, in the business world. And it's really cool. And I actually went to a Dress for Success event last week, and I'm mentoring another woman here in Pittsburgh that I brought as a guest, and another guest of mine that I had met like 10 years ago at a WBEN event. They were both in a book together that was published, but they never met in person. But they both got to meet, you know, at this event with me last week too. And like, it, I don't know, it's just so cool to do this, because then it's just, you're building your tribe, you know, going back to that again. And it's, I don't know, it's just so powerful.
And Abby did her first, so I met Abby, the lady Kristy was talking about. I met her yesterday. And so we're standing by Trey Griggs, and I was like, you're going live, like you're going on. She's like, oh my God. I'm like, you're going to be fine. So again, building that network then pushes you into different spots you never thought you'd be in. So it's very cool.
And for everybody who's like, I'm trying to figure out how to do it, or I went to a conference once and it wasn't that great, you've got to go to the same events over and over. You've got to give it time. It's not just going to be a one-time thing. And you can hear Kristy, the way she mentioned it, she's using the word building a lot. Like 10 years ago I did this, and 5 years ago I did this. Like you've got to keep going and keep consistent. And it's such a good payoff. Such a big payoff.
I'm in my 25th year, and I've been saying this now, like in the last couple months. I look back and it's amazing the amount of people I know, or people that know me, like Nicole said, that I don't know. I walk somewhere and people are just, they know, and I'm just like, wow, like I really built this because I put myself out there. I injected myself into crowds, and I was the person who introduced myself when no one else wanted to do that. I was the girl sitting at the table by myself, and then I'm like, nope, I'm going to go get up and talk to someone. Like, what's it going to do to you at the end of the day? Like, you just have to get over that fear, right?
Yep. You have to get over the fear.
So that's our big word today, fear.
Yep.
Fear.
Fearless.
We're working on it every day.
Fearless leaders. I have a coffee cup in my office here that says I'm a fearless leader.
Fearless leader, but I'm so full of so much fear every day.
So Cassandra, we're already at 30 minutes, but I have to ask you one more question. Like, you're looking forward to the future. This is like a cheesy job interview question. Look at this.
I like it.
what does that look like for you on what you're doing? Like we titled this show Building Your Empire, right? So when you see your empire, like, what is that? What do you shoot?
I have this vision that I am like beating at every day. I'm like, I'm gonna get there. I'm just baby steps every day. But right now, for those of you who don't know, Carrier Sure is it's like a credit score for carriers. So you check the credit score before you tender the shipment. It's complementary to all your onboarding platforms because, as you know, everybody has an onboarding platform, but they're still having double brokering and cargo theft and hostage loads and problems. This credit score prevents you from having those problems. But one day, this is what I want, right? I want everybody to be checking the credit score for carriers. And we suddenly can move away from those bottom feeders or let the bottom feeders do the bottom feeder things. But at least you knew it was a bottom feeder before you hired them. And then I'm going to turn my sights on having a brokerage score, having a shipper score, having a factoring score, dispatch score, so that it's almost like Rate My Professor at a university, but for the entire industry. So we've got a full 360. So everybody's just checking the scores because right now, at least for people who are newer in the industry that are not like you guys, they don't have a lot of experience. They can't tell who's sketchy and who's not, or who's great and who's not. They don't know. And so if we had more scores and more information available, I think we'd be able to improve the industry as a whole. And I think that also we'd be able to avoid certain bad actors, really.
And what I love about that is you hear all the time about they have a customer has an experience with a bad broker, right? And then they don't want to use brokers at all.
Yep.
But we're not all the same. So how do you really know who you're working with and who's good and who's not? So I love your idea of where you're going with this.
And same for shippers, by the way. Brokers get burnt by bad shippers and they don't even know. And like I'll see new startup brokerages and they'll be like, I'm so excited, I got this big contract with the shipper now. And we know who these shippers are. I'm going to not name names, but we know who they are. They're the ones that nobody wants to do business with because they filed 5,000 cargo claims with us and we made no money and you were just a total pain in the ass. But this new brokerage was all excited and I was like, oh
Yeah.
Oh, you poor souls.
I've been there before.
So I see your vision too to be like almost like you're the Dun and Bradstreet. And so a company like mine, right, as a brokerage can go to my shipper and they go, what's your carrier compliance process? And I say, well, I do this. And here is, here's our carriers and their scorecards. Like we're putting elite on your freight. And so you want to be that name, kind of like the Experian or awesome. That's
you totally got it. I use Experian, Dun and Bradstreet. Those are my analogies all the time. I'm like, guys, and you can still hire F carriers. You can still do whatever you want. You just gotta, we still hire shippers, even though they have a crappy Dun and Brad's D&B report. We just know to shorten the terms on their payment. We know that we gotta not give them as much credit and do other things. But at least we knew, you guys. I don't like how much we're getting blindsided in this industry from all directions.
Yeah, I agree. And there's not a whole lot that the government steps in on this, which I actually go and advocate on behalf of TIA for legislation and supply chain. And it's been very challenging. I would say now would be a better time with supply chain being in the front of the news, but it's still challenging to educate like how important some of these things are to companies out in supply chain.
And the government often is like, let the private companies, they'll figure it out. We're not losing any money. Nobody's getting harmed. So they'll figure it out. They're paying for the cargo claims. I feel like sometimes, I'm sure they're not saying that, but that's always what I think in my head. I'm like, that's maybe why they're not changing anything for us.
Yeah, that could be too. They're not getting something out of it. And at the end of the day, they just don't see what the problem is until like COVID hit, right? And then nobody could get their product. And now all of a sudden supply chain is like the forefront of everything. And it's like, oh yeah, we forgot that's how stuff gets to stores. And now we need to make sure everyone's following the rules,
I think they have a one size fits all method.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. And so doing some of this work too and advocating through TIA and different associations to really get our voices out there and educate them. So I was in a roundtable yesterday with the FMCSA administrator, me and 8 people. I felt like, how am I in this room? This is completely amazing. But even some of the topics that were being shared, they're sitting there, they're taking notes because they don't understand. They don't live in our world, right? And so I think having that voice and doing what we're doing with these associations and your work too, Cassandra, like it says something different, and we need something different. And so
Yeah, we do.
we can be like, planting those seeds of change. It takes a long damn time.
It
But
does.
at least we say something.
And a big tribe.
Yeah.
And a big tribe.
There you go. There you go. Well, I'm like so sad that we're out of time, but we loved having you on here. I did, for sure.
Yeah.
I loved being here. You guys are wonderful. I feel honored. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Elated to hear this session. So again, ladies, any questions or comments, feel free to always send us a note on LLC, reach out to Cassandra. Cassandra, what's a good way through LinkedIn that people can find you?
You guys can just type in Cassandra Gaines, Gaines. You'll find me, or you'll find anything that Nicole or Kristy posts. I'm usually their biggest cheerleaders because we don't have many of us women in the industry out there. So you can always find me right behind them.
And then your company website, how do they find out more information on your product?
Carrier is Carrier Assure, ASSURE.com. And that's where you can get a free trial. You can learn all the information. And we have all sorts of resources for everybody.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to learning more in the future of this empire. We're going to keep tabs on you with that.
Thank you. Same to you guys. I'm excited to have both of you guys on MadGaines soon.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yes, thank you. And congratulations on your success.
Thank you very much. Bye, guys.
You're welcome. Bye, Cassandra.